Dricus du Plessis is the new middleweight champion of the world. He defeats Sean Strickland via split decision. And guys, let me get this out of the way to start. I thought Sean Strickland won the fight off of what I saw from the fight. Now, the swing round everyone keeps talking about is round 3, right? Because I think Strickland obviously won round 1 and 5, and du Plessis won round 2 and 4. So 3 is up for debate. Right as the round ended, I had thought Sean Strickland won, but then I remember back to round 3 and the moments that Dricus du Plessis had and what kind of turned the tide for him. Now, look, it was power versus defense the entire fight. Dricus du Plessis was coming so close to those overhands and those big winging punches, but Strickland did a good job of avoiding that the entire fight. The only problem with Strickland is once he got taken down, right, and then he got that cut, it felt like he kind of just, the wind came out of his sails there for a little bit, and it was like, all right, DDP's taking over. And that's why I thought he would win the fight. I thought he would blitzkrieg him and get a knockout in the fight. Obviously, the knockout didn't happen. I thought Sean Strickland would win this by decision if it ever did get to the judge scorecard. But Dricus du Plessis has a good gas tank. Like, he showed a lot of, he's never been to rounds 4 and 5 in the UFC, never even in his entire career, he has never made to the 4th round. And that was something I was a little skeptical of, was if he couldn't finish that in the first few rounds, how was he going to look later in the fight? And he had his best round in round 4 where he cut Strickland. Or was that? I think that was round 4. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just watched too many fights. Too much is going on. But it was either round 3 or 4. I think it was 4. And that was his biggest round. So kudos to Dricus du Plessis. Obviously, I got the pick right. And overall in the card, I did pretty good. I think I did 7 and 5. We started off pretty hot. Some of the underdogs I picked cashed. And then the main card, I kind of sputtered a little bit with some of those fights. But back to the fight. Dricus du Plessis called out Israel Adesanya, which makes sense. I kind of figured that would be who he would call out. Whoever won was probably going to call out Izzy. And I was like, all right, whoever wins this fight, Dana's announcing at the press conference. He's announcing, Dricus and Izzy or Sean and Izzy at UFC 300. But I think he's probably going to wait during the week and probably do it then, or maybe next week. Who knows? But yeah, what a fight from both the guys. They showed both, they showed toughness. They showed good skills. I thought Strickland was going to maybe just dominate DDP after that first round. He looked really, really good. His jab was landing. It swelled up the eye of Dricus du Plessis. And I thought that was going to become a problem for Dricus. But ultimately, Dricus overcame that in the second round and won that round. And then obviously he must have won round 3 and then 4. So he rallied off 3 rounds in a row off a guy who is usually a slow starter and then gets into the fight, right? With Strickland's past fights, he's lost the first round outside of the Izzy fight in the majority of his fights because he wants to get a measured approach. He wants to find distance, parry the shots, defend shots, and then he gets his offense going once he gasses the other guy out. But DDP didn't gas, and that's what ultimately won him the fight. His nonstop pressure also got to Strickland in those middle rounds. I mean, he was landing those punches, and the reason why I picked Dricus to win was the pressure, and it ultimately was the reason why he won the fight. So I'm glad that happened. Obviously, the pick, I won, but it doesn't feel like I won, right? And give credit to Sean Strickland. I mean, in round 5, when he was down 3-1, he came back and he fought good in the 5th round. Like, he was landing a lot of shots, and I'll have to go rewatch round 3 to get a good sense of who really won that round. But it just feels like Strickland won, and I don't know. Nonetheless, though, it was a great fight. Some other fights I want to get to, Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I mean, I could not believe, I couldn't watch it. Oh man, Mayra Bueno Silva, I picked her to win. Okay, I picked her to win. So I'm a little mad that I didn't get that pick right. But she just, oh man, the gas tank was just not there. And not only the gas tank, it shut down pretty early in the fight. Outside of the grappling, exchanges earlier in the fight, she did absolutely nothing. She didn't threaten much with takedowns, right? She would just clinch up, and that was where the majority of the fight was in the clinch. And give credit to Raquel Pennington. She looked good. Even though it was a slow fight, kind of a boring fight, she was the one actually pressing action, which I thought Mayra Bueno Silva would actually press action. But nonetheless, we got a new WMMA Bantamweight champion. She'll probably face Pena next. And yeah, got that pick wrong. Movsar Evloev and Arnold Allen, another really close fight. There was a lot of close fights on this card. A lot of fights where I lost, where they were close, and a lot of fights that were close that I won. So I was getting a little bit of both. But this is one I got right. Movsar Evloev by decision. Look, ultimately the cut did it. And can I just say something about Movsar Evloev? He's not that boring. He really is not that boring. He is actually pretty explosive. The only problem is he just has low output. And, sometimes he'll hang on to a leg. But most of the time, he's actually trying to work takedowns and work positioning. And he's explosive. He actually has, good hands, too. I really do like him. In the future fight, I want to see him versus Ilia Topuria, obviously. But what's next for Movsar Evloev? That's a good question because I don't know. It's kind of starting to get up, it's kind of starting to get just a little bit log jammed at the featherweight, and maybe not for a good reason. And I think that performance may have helped him a little bit. Obviously, he's going to go up in ranking, but to get a title shot, right? Ilia Topuria went out there and dominated Josh Emmett in 5 rounds and just took it to him, and ultimately that's why he got the title shot. But for Movsar, a split decision where a lot of people thought he didn't even win, who do they give him, right? There's a lot of names you can give him. Do you give him, I don't know, Yair Rodriguez, Ryan Ortega winner, right? Do you give him Volkanovski if Volkanovski loses or if Ilya loses, right? There's a lot of options for Movsar since he is kind of a fresh name in the top 5. And it'll be interesting. As for Allen, I think he looked good. I mean, this is a high-level fight. These are 2 top 5. I really do think these are 2 top 5 guys in the division because I'm telling you right now, if Arnold Allen or Movsar Evloev was in the cage with Brian Ortega tonight, they'd both have their hand raised after a first or second round finish. I'm just playing. But you know what I'm saying? Like, Movsar showed tonight that he's up there with the top guys. And Allen's already proven he's up there with the top guys. So it was a good fight, got the pick right, so I'm happy about that. Nothing more to say about that fight. And then some other fights, Marc-Andre Barriault, I got that pick wrong, and Mike Malott, I got that pick wrong. The Curtis Barriault fight, I don't really have to say anything about that fight. It was kind of slow paced. It picked up towards the end, but I kind of figured that Barriault had lost that fight, and I kind of accepted reality, even though it was a split decision, which was crazy. I thought Chris Curtis at least won 29-28 or 30-27. So, yeah. And then Mike Malott losing to Neil Magny. Man, I was really wrong about this. I was actually kind of high on Mike Malott. I thought, a guy who's a contender who finishes people usually means they're a top guy. But ultimately, the low output did him wrong because he was actually kind of landing on Neil Magny. The only problem is that Neil Magny is the master of clinch. He might as well just be the whole master of the clinch of all time because that's how he won the fight. And he gassed out Mike Malott, right? That's a tiring position. People don't realize clinching is tiring sometimes when you're trying to work underhooks, when you're trying to work position on the fence. It takes a lot out of you. And Malott has never, he's finished every single person he's ever fought. So ultimately, Neil Magny got him down, ground and pounded him. I couldn't believe it. That's one I should have got right, but old stingy vet, stingy Neil Magny gets it done. And I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was rooting for him, but the guy gets shit on all the time by MMA fans, MMA YouTubers, including me, right? And I think he was going a little underrated in this fight. I think if true people watch Neil Magny. Like they know he might actually be the ultimate gatekeeper too. He's the master of clinch and the ultimate gatekeeper of the UFC. Book it. If he ain't a Hall of Famer, that's what he is. And then some prelim fights. I got the Garrett Armfield pick right. I couldn't believe many people were picking Katona. I when I saw Armfield, I saw a guy who actually pressed forward and had good striking and good power versus Katona, who is an average striker with average power and apparently has good wrestling, but didn't really use that much until the later half of the fight. I'm glad I got that one. A lot of people saying it was a robbery. Get out of town. Armfield clearly won that fight. Another underdog I got right was Sean Woodson beating Charles Jourdain. I think if people were just looking too much into name value. I mean, Sean Woodson was a professional boxer, and he had an eye-to-itch reach advantage going into that fight. And I figured it would be a 29-28. The split decision was a little weird, and then at the end, Charles Jourdain thought he won. Sean Woodson thought he lost because the ref heard Sean, and it was just a whole thing. Anyways, it was a whole thing, but I'm glad I got the pick right. Sean Woodson is underrated. People do not. He's got good takedown defense and good striking and good head movement. He's freakish for the division, man. He really is. He's what, almost 6'3" with a 78 reach. That's crazy. I mean, obviously if you can get a good wrestler that can take him down consistently through a fight, that'll cause him problems. But I see him beating a lot of guys out of the top 15 and maybe a couple guys in the top 15. And yeah, what a performance by Sean Woodson. Siri Sadi and Roman Tavares, what a fight. At that point, it was like, man, this is a fight night. And then Mavzar happened. I was like, okay, that's a fight night. And then obviously the main event happened. So not the fight of the night, but the people's fight of the night. Another close one. I got this one wrong. Ultimately, it just came down to damage. I mean, Siri Sadi's face was a bloody mess. Bloody mess. I mean, his entire face was red. I understand the decision. I didn't know who to pick. It was so close and it was so entertaining. I couldn't really judge it, and I didn't really care to judge. I just was enjoying the fight. But I think it was the right decision. Tavares, they were saying Sadi was like, man, Sadi is this and that. Like he looks good. I was like, I don't know. Tavares he's not letting much hit him, right? And there'd be a lot of times where Roman Tavares would get in a combination, or like he'd be on defense against a combination on the fence, and then he'd slip out, and everyone's like, dude, head kick. And he landed it one time. I think he almost landed it a second time, but that was something that Tavares telegraphed throughout the fight that Siri Sadi could have taken advantage of more often. But ultimately, it was a good fight. I'm not mad I got the pick wrong. Both those guys put their bodies on the line. It was a fun fight. And then just some other results. I got the Gillian Robinson fight right. I got the Sam Patterson fight wrong. I thought Johan Lanes was going to win. Patterson subbed him. Yeah. And then Jasmine Judavicius just dominated. The last. I can't pronounce it. But yeah, she dominated her. I figured she would win. And yeah. And then Jimmy Flick submitted Malcolm Gordon, like I said. He just had the better submission game. That's all it was. It was low level, not much thought into it. And I'm like, okay, I see a guy with 14 submissions. I'm going to pick that guy. Right. It's the same thing with like DDP. You see this guy finishing everyone, and you're like, I kind of have to pick the guy who's finishing everyone. Consistently. If he's got something that works, it's, I have more faith in you winning the fight if something continually happens, right? But yeah, so I think overall I am 15-9 on the year, or 15-8. 15-8 on the year, 2-0 in main events. Not my best performance on the second half of stretch of my picks, but we started off hot, got some good underdogs. We got Woodson. We had Flick, Woodson, Armfield we got right. And then I guess that was the only three underdogs I got right, because Dricus was a pick-em by the time the fight happened. But the time I predicted it, I think he was a slight underdog. It was like plus 120. But anyways, yeah, we're 15-8 on the year. Not the best card to start the year, guys. Really, we need better fights. I think UFC 298 will be pretty good. I mean, the main card looks pretty good. And an early prediction for some of those fights, man, I think I might have to go with Ilya Taporia. I might have to. And then, yeah, I'll give you the main event now. All right, I'm not going to give you the whole card. But I think right now I'm leaning Ilya Taporia. So yeah, UFC 297 is over with. First pay-per-view of the year. Hopefully it gets better from here. But yeah, until next time, peace.